Hey, Brent here with Autosport Labs with a demo of the RaceCapture V2 app. Well, this is the big release, and it's been a year in the making plus. We're really excited to get this to you, and we're going to show you some new dashboard features, analysis capabilities, and an updated setup view. We're using a new material design look and feel with a new color scheme, and that's been applied throughout the app. So we're pretty proud of it, and we hope you like it too. Let's start by checking out the setup page and see what changes have been done there. So when you go to setup, you'll first see a home screen for setup, which has all the convenient read, write, open, save buttons, and we've added the first time setup page so you can always access it. What we've also done is we've moved the app preferences from the main menu to the setup, which makes sense because now you can see the app preferences along with the preferences for the device itself. All of the setup screens have been moved to a tabbed bar at the top, which makes it easier to select, save screen real estate, and also works better on a mobile device, especially when you hold it in a portrait mode. So you can click through the different screens, or you can scroll and then click all the way across. When you're on one of the specific setup screens, all of the open, save, read, write buttons pop up at the bottom, so they're always accessible at a moment's notice for making quick changes. Okay, the first thing you want to do after installing the new RaceCapture app is go update the firmware for your RaceCapture system. So in this case, I have a RaceCapture Pro connected. It's at the latest 2.17.8. We are going to go upgrade it, and by doing that, you go to Setup, and then you scroll over, click and drag or swipe, go all the way over to the Firmware tab, and then you're presented with a screen to either reboot, factory reset, or update firmware. When you click Update Firmware, it gives you a warning message, so you should save your configuration first, and you can do that by pressing the Save button. So save it, and then you can proceed with the update firmware. So I have the 2.18.4 firmware ready to go. And what I'm doing here is I have the RaceCapture Pro connected via USB, and once I hit select, you'll see that it is flashing the orange light, and then it will start upgrading the firmware. So this takes just a couple of minutes, and once it finishes firmware uploading, then it will automatically restart, and then you will see the firmware version change up here in the upper right corner after it reconnects. Go ahead and finish this, and it should auto reconnect once it's done. And there we go. We're complete, and the app reconnects automatically. And once it connects, then you should see the RaceCapture Pro Mark III 2.18.4 firmware. Okay, let's get into what is really the centerpiece of the RaceCapture app, and that is its brand new dashboard. And before we do that, let's go into Setup and make sure we have our simulated data channels configured. And the way we've been able to do that is through a little bit of a trick through Lua scripting to make it look like RaceCapture is racing around the track and updating engine gauges at the comfort of your own desk. So we have a script here that simulates varying speeds and periodic pit stops, and I've added some engine temp, RPM, oil and fuel level sensors just to make it a little bit more interesting. This is something you can play with as well. You can go under presets and select import script preset, and then go to shared presets. This is a brand new feature of the RaceCapture V2 app. Anywhere there used to be a system preset, now we have system, yours, and shared presets. So I saved it under, there's lap time simulator, which just has the lap times, or there's the extended lap time simulator, which is what I used for the blog post in this video. So you can select it, and if I select it, then it'll overwrite the same script, but since we have the script loaded already, I'll cancel all the way out. And yeah, here we are. So let's exit out and go to our dashboard. And now we're looking at simulated lap timing. So this will look familiar. This is very similar to the existing lap time review on the previous version of the app. We have our delta versus best. It's predictive time versus best time. We have the current lap, we have the lap time, and we have the session time listed on the screen. Let's go ahead and maximize this. Just like with the previous version of the app, You can go in and add a dashboard, and you can browse the system dashboards. Very similar to what we had in the previous version. We have the raw channels view, we have 3 gauges, we have the predictive timer screen. And what you can do also is you can look at dashboards that have been made by other racers. So through our beta testing program, we've had a lot of great people pouring in a lot of testing work in advance of this release, and in the course of their testing, they've made some pretty cool dashboards. It's interesting, a lot of them focus on the predictive timer screen, and we can find those by entering a keyword in the search bar here. So here's a classic timer, here's somebody reinterpreting the lap timer, combining RPM and lap time, and so on. So let's pick this one. Let's pick the classic timer. I kind of like it, so I'm going to give it 5 stars. Thanks, it flies. I'm going to select it, and now that's been added as a brand new dashboard page. I can swipe back to the original one and then swipe back to this new one. You can also use the left and right arrow keys on the page for navigating. Okay, so another thing we can do with this brand new dashboard is we can customize any aspect of the dashboard. So I'm going to make a few changes to this dashboard. I'm going to make the predictive time a little bit smaller. I'm going to move the current lap up to the side here, and then move the lap time over and make the best lap a little bit bigger and kind of center the 2 on the screen. Then I'm going to go into the best lap and switch the best lap color to purple, so it's a little more in line with how F1 defines best laps. It seems to be the popular color. And yeah, there's a quick edit. I'm going to lock it, and now it's ready to use. What you can also do is you can save this dashboard and either have 2 options. You have create new or replace existing. I can create a new dashboard, give it a name, some notes, and then I can either make it private or public. I'm going to leave it as public and then save it. And then that gets saved to your Podium account. And what that means is you can log in to your Podium account on another RaceCapture device. Let's say it's running on Android or iOS or another computer, and you can bring that dashboard back in. For example, I can remove this dashboard and then load it again. Add it, go to mine, and there's my updated lap timer. I can select it, and then it's back on the screen. Okay, let's take a look at how alerts work in the new RaceCapture app. Well, alerts are similar to how it's been set up before. So let's play around with it and set up a new dashboard page. So we have RPM plus 3 gauges. We'll select that, and there's our RPM up at the top. Let's customize that a little bit. Let's make it an angular gauge. All right, and then let's customize the center channel gauges to be engine temp. That'll work. And then let's do speed. And then let's do another one, oil pressure. Cool, so there are 3 gauges: RPM, oil pressure, engine temperature, and speed. And remember, these are simulated through the Lewis scripting that we set up before. Okay, for customizing alerts, you can go into the gauge, select the channel. You have your gauge overrides here, and then you can go into alerts, and we can say add a rule. We want to say anything above, let's say 90, we'll trigger an alert. And then add a new action, set the gauge color, and that will color the gauge red. Okay, our way out. And then let's wait for that to, there we go. Jumped over 90, and it colored our gauge red. So you can go back in to the gauge and customize that alert. Set gauge color, 90 or higher. But remember that these alerts are defined globally. So anytime you define an alert, it'll show up anywhere there's a gauge that specifies that channel. Let's select that, and there we go. So the bottom gauge here will update along with the round gauge that we defined. You can also go into more settings and access your gauges centrally. So you don't need to go onto a gauge to customize the alerts, but you can go to our central alerts editor. Here's our speed channel with one alert rule. And then now we're able to customize it from this point. So you have two ways of editing alerts. Other than that, the alerts operate identically to the previous version of the RaceCapture app. Okay, now we're going to show you how to create a dashboard from scratch. So what we have here is a blank canvas. I went and deleted all of the gauges from this dashboard. Let's go ahead and maximize the screen just so we have a lot of screen real estate. So let's start by adding a gauge. So we're going to add an analog gauge, and then let's select RPM channel. And there's our RPM channel. We're going to put it in the corner and make it really big because everybody likes to see the RPMs. And I don't want this yellow color, but we can change that by going into the gauge overrides. What the gauge overrides does is it lets you change the min, max, and digits of precision for this gauge independently of how the channel is configured. So I'm going to set it to 0 digits of precision, which means it'll show a whole number only. And let's max the RPM range to 8,000, and then let's choose a color of, let's pick green. Okay, our way out of that, and now we have green, and then the max range is 8,000, so we have a nice sweep on the RPM gauge. Okay, what else are we going to add? Well, we have a few additional points of simulated data. Let's add another analog gauge, and let's add some temperature channels. So we have engine temperature, that's probably a good one. Let's put that across the bottom there. And let's add another gauge. Let's add another temperature gauge. I think we have some simulated data. Yeah, so oil temperature is another one we can add. Okay, so we have two temperature gauges, and then let's see what else we can add. Let's add a digital gauge, and I think I have an idea of what I want to use. Let's do a lap count gauge. So we have 310 laps from our predictive timing simulator. Looks like I left this running overnight. So we're going to nest this lap count gauge right in the crook of the RPM gauge, because why not? Let's add another gauge, and then let's do a digital gauge of, let's get our predictive lap time. Make it nice and big on the screen. And then let's add another gauge. We have a little bit of space down here in the corner. Let's do a bar graph gauge. And I wonder what we could choose for this. Let's see. Oh, let's do the fuel gauge. And looks like our simulated data has perpetual 55% of fuel capacity, so we're never going to run out of gas here in this world. in this alternate reality. Do we have room for one more gauge? Well, maybe. Let's take a look. Let's see what we have for channels. Well, let's do, this could be fun. Let's do a G-sum gauge. And so G-sum is a sum of all the accelerometer channels, and it just shows you how much grip you're using overall. And that's a fun indicator to have on your dashboard, which kind of shows you how you're doing, like how hard you're pushing for the given conditions. So as G-sum increases, that will grow this bar. And let me grab the RaceCapture here, bring that in, and now you can see G-sum updating based on the changing orientation. Okay, well, that's not a bad dashboard. I think that could be fairly useful for people. I'm going to go ahead and lock it. Locking prevents any editing of the dashboard, so you don't accidentally change something or move a position, like as you're using the screen for swiping on the screen or whatever. So there we are. So cool. I think we're good. Let's go ahead and save this dashboard. We're going to make a new dashboard and dash from video demo. Okay, and so I give it a name and provided some notes, and we're going to leave it as not private. Save, and there we are. Now what you can do is you can add this dashboard again, and on your other device, for example, there is the dashboard from the video, and you can select that and import it. And we have our Fire 10-inch tablet, and I'll launch the RaceCapture app. RaceCapture app is connected. We're going to go into the dashboard, and then we will add a dashboard. Go to mine, and there is the dashboard from the video demo we just made. Select, and there we have it. We have the same dashboard on the tablet that we made on the desktop. So what you can do with this is you can design your dashboards at home, go to your mobile device, go to your dashboard in your car, recall it, import it. You can even make changes on that dashboard in the car, and then you could save it again, and you have this round trip editing process that's very convenient. All right, with the version 2 RaceCapture app, we have completely revamped the analysis capabilities. So let's take a look at that now. So click Analysis to go into the analysis mode, and let's go ahead and maximize this screen. So right now we're looking at a speed trace and a time gap for 2 laps being compared, and we have a track map at the top. And the analysis mode has a similar usage model like the dashboard. You can customize all the screens, but what we've done is we've added this layout manager that organizes your gauges in a type of a grid, so they're always resizing and maximized to the available space. You can customize this view by pressing the plus button on the left side and then selecting the gauge that you want to look at. So here's RPM. Now we have RPM with the track map. I've zoomed in on the track map so you can see the line taken. And if you want to add another gauge, let's say, let's take a look at steering angle. And there's steering angle, but you know what? I don't like a round gauge for steering angle. I'm going to do a bar graph gauge because that is a little bit more intuitive. Yeah, so there's a bar graph gauge for steering angle. If I also want to add a scatter plot, we can do that, and let's do a traction of X and Y accelerometer, and then let's choose throttle position. And there's our traction circle. If you want to zoom in on the traction circle, you can edit this channel and then change the min-max values. So we want negative 1.5 Gs at one extent, and then positive 1.5 Gs at the other extent. And let's do that for the y-axis as well. Negative 1.5 and 1.5. Okay, your way through that, and now we can zoom in on the actual data. So you have your traction circle showing the accelerometer data, and then the heat map is throttle position. You can use the scatter plot for other uses, such as oil pressure versus RPM or oil pressure versus G-force, which is good to see if you're losing oil pressure in a corner. So it's very versatile that way. Once you're done designing a dashboard, just like with the regular dashboard mode, the analysis page, you can lock it, and then you can even save it as a new design. And there we go, time gap plus traction circle. We're going to share it publicly. And now it's available for other users, or you can recall it on your other devices. If you want to import another analysis page, you can do that by selecting one of the available presets, either a system preset or a shared preset. And now you can page between your views by using the arrow keys or pressing these arrows at the bottom of the page. And this should be familiar to you. This is very similar to the dashboard designer, but you can use the same designer to make analysis dashboards as well. Add the raw channels view like you see on the dashboard mode, but now you get to view the data side by side under analysis. So there are all your channels.